Joining us now is Ed Mills, Managing Director and Washington Policy Analyst at Raymond James. Ed, I'm glad you can be with us. Respond, why don't you, to Ryan Lance's comment here that this is an avowedly anti-business administration. That seems to be what he was saying just there. Do you agree?
So, Tyler, I think what the Biden administration would say is they would point to a lot of the different fiscal stimulus programs that were passed under this administration, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, all of that being what we've considered at Raymond James the hidden stimulus in this economy that is causing businesses to invest a lot in manufacturing, invest a lot in the workforce, driving up wages, keeping people employed, and part of why we have been calling for a soft landing. I do think what we've heard from the Biden administration, CNBC had Lyle Brennard on earlier today talking about how this is not the Biden agenda, this is the American people's agenda. And that's because a lot of these things, despite what we might not like in the business community or for corporations, it has a lot of popular support. So a lot of these things have to be viewed more through the political language, Tyler, than kind of through this market angle that we're required to look at it.
Let's talk about possible tax hikes. Bob just mentioned one potentially on buybacks. I'm curious there. Corporate minimum tax, increasing the maximum rates there, or the rates there to from 15 to something like 21% or something like that. Are those likely to pass in any? They're certainly not going to pass this year, but in a new Congress, and if Biden wins, he would ask for them. Presumably, his opponent would not.
Yeah, so Tyler, this is all about next December's expiration of the 2017 Trump-era tax cuts. On December 31st of next year, the corporate tax changes are permanent, but the individual tax provisions all expire. So this really is a political speech tonight, setting up what is going to be a contrast between the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign. And what Biden will be saying is, if I get reelected, we shouldn't keep the corporate side permanent. If you want to extend out some of the individual tax provisions, we should balance this off with changes to the corporate tax code. Now, that doesn't happen unless there's a Democratic sweep. But also what's keeping a little less pressure on Democrats on the individual side is that if Democrats do nothing if they win the election in November, that $10,000 cap on salt also goes away. That's about $1 trillion tax cut for a lot of constituents of Democrats, especially in these high-cost states.
Obviously, we have a long way to go until the election, and we know things are very dynamic and change all the time. But as of right now, it does seem that former President Trump may have a slight lead over current President Biden for a possible re-election. If that happens, what do you expect the market will do or will behave at this point?
Yeah, Courtney, this week we put out a report here at Raymond James that looked at the election probabilities. And as the things stand right now, we do think that former President Trump has a slight lead. However, what was really interesting to us is that when we look at the composition of Congress, you could make an argument that if Trump is reelected, that there's a high probability of a Republican sweep. And if Biden's reelected, there's a decent probability of a Democratic sweep. So on these tax issues, if you have a sweep, that unlocks reconciliation. That's the ability to do this on party line. Even if there's not a sweep, we believe whoever is in the White House is going to make the determination on these fiscal cliff issues like taxes. And so the market will react with some uncertainty in that Democratic sweep or Biden reelection. But it's not all bad. As I talk about the fact that the SALT cap goes away, that's a real positive for a lot of folks. If it is a Trump reelection, the expectation will be, most, if not all, of the Trump tax cuts stay in place after 2025.